Good morning and welcome to DownieLive. I'm Michael and today I'm in front of Parallel 49 Brewing in Vancouver for a really unique experiment they're trying. They are pairing with Odd Society Spirits, which is a distillery in Vancouver, and together they're going to make a whiskey. I know, really cool. This is Hiroshi with Parallel 49 Brewing. What are we about to do?
We are making wort.
We are doing a collaboration whiskey. What's going to happen is Parallel 49 is going to do the mashing and create a kind of a beer using one of their recipes, and then we're going to wheel the tote over to our distillery and ferment it and distill it at Odd Society. They do the first part and then we take over and do the second part.
Cool. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
So step one is to cut open the malt bag, put it into the auger. They go up into these tubes over there, and then it comes down here into the mash tun where they're making a wort, essentially, which is soaking the malt, and it's going to turn the starch into sugars so they can make that into alcohol.
It's pretty cool, and it's also cool to see a big brewery and their equipment, and yeah.
It's a little different than your shop, which you'll see shortly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm excited.
It's really fun watching them chat there because Hiroshi is learning a little from Joel about the distilling process, and Joel gets to learn a little bit more about the brewing process from Hiroshi.
Oh, looking good. It's a big mash, the biggest mash I've ever done on this system.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll let it sit for an hour.
Okay.
For starch to sugar conversion. For this recipe,
Yeah.
the beer,
Yeah.
base beer is Old Boy,
Yeah.
our brown ale. It's roughly 12 Plato beer,
Okay.
and that's about 5%.
Yeah.
And then I scaled up the recipe to get higher alcohol.
Higher alcohol
So
content.
we are shooting for 19
Okay.
instead of 12. Basically, it's a stronger version of our Old Boy
So
brown ale.
more alcohol content in this mash, in this beer,
Yes.
because it's being used in a whiskey, which you want a higher alcohol content.
Yes.
That's the idea?
Yeah. I'm doing a test called iodine
Yeah.
test to make sure starch to sugar conversion is complete.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's fine.
That looks good?
Yeah.
We put the malts in here, raise the temperature with hot water to activate an enzyme, which then converts the starch into sugar. That's making a mash. And they've actually upped the ratio on their Old Boy brown ale, so that it gives a higher alcohol content because we're putting it into a whiskey. So now we're on to the next step.
Now mash is heated up. Now I'm putting wort from the mash at bottom
Yeah.
in a pump.
Okay.
And then pump it back to the top to recirculate. Doing so, we use grain bed as filter, and this wort
Yeah.
will get clearer.
The grain itself as the filter.
Yes.
Wow. So I haven't introduced you guys to Joel yet. He's the brewer distiller at Odd Society.
We are hydrating yeast that we're going to then pitch into the tote that we're moving over.
You're
And,
getting to 37.5.
yeah, so that's based on adding boiling water and then some cold water, and that's the temperature that the yeast hydrates best at.
Okay.
Nice one.
So we're now transferring the wort from the kettle into this tote here. The wort's coming out at 100 degrees. It's going through a cooler that cools it to 24 degrees. We put the yeast in the tote, so immediately once it starts coming in, the yeast starts eating at the sugars and it's going to convert it to alcohol. The next stage after this is to take it over to the distillery where it gets made into a whiskey. Cheers to a true collaboration. I equate this to drinking milk straight from the cow. Like, you can't get it any fresher than out of this tap here. Your job is done now.
Not quite. Not quite.
Well, you've put it into the plastic barrel.
Yeah. I still have cleaning.
Yes.
That's kind
Of
of main
course.
part of a brewer's job.
So I just asked, and we were just doing some math, how heavy is this? They say it's about 1 kilogram per liter. and this is 1,000 liters, which means it's roughly 1,000 kilograms.
We got our work cut out for us.
We have 8 blocks to go. Teamwork makes the dream work.
I'm ready.
Without have no soul.
Hiroshi, this whiskey is going to be handmade, literally pushed from the brewery to the distillery. I hope you enjoy the whiskey on a wet, cold, rainy day, because that's when it was made. Hiroshi, your job is done. It's all on you, Joel.
We got this.
This is just a giant pot with a fancy lid. What happens in this still is super simple. It all works with boiling points. So water boils at 100 Celsius and ethanol boils around 75 Celsius. So all we're doing is slowly heating up the liquid, and then because ethanol is more volatile, we call it, it has a lower boiling point, it's going to come off first, and it's going to leave the water behind. So that's how we separate them. So we just keep collecting as much ethanol as we want, or until we decide to stop it, and the water tends to be left behind, and then we just dump it down the drain.
So now this is all the clear ethanol that we've gotten out of the still. We're going to put this back into the still called the spirit run, and essentially it's going to do the exact same thing again. You can see already how clear this is compared to that brown mash we had. It's going to come out even clearer, making it a clean, purified whiskey. And then simply the last step is to barrel it. So like any good whiskey, once you put it in a barrel, it has to sit for 3 years, of which I don't have that kind of time. But I do want to try the whiskey here, so I'm going to go out into the tasting room and have myself a whiskey cocktail to see how this might turn out.
Love it.
Well, if you don't want to wait 3 years for this collab whiskey to be done, you can come into the tasting room anytime. It's really nice, and the drinks are even better. I really enjoyed this collaboration between a brewery and a distillery. It's very unusual, but I liked it a lot. If you liked it too, make sure to subscribe down below, because I go behind the scenes at a lot more places, and I don't know where I'm going next, but I'd love to have you there with me. In the meantime, cheers.